Welcome, friends. It's Frank here from Truth Grace Ministry. And my topic today is that on women's ability to participate in their sport without being subjected to men who are now identifying themselves as women fight or compete against them. Why is this such a problem today? Why is there such a debate about this? For myself personally, last night I was watching the Olympics and seeing a female boxer from Poland fight for the gold medal, and she was confronted by another person, another female, apparently female by passport, not biology, but by the passport that she or he is carrying. And the differences was quite stark in style, power, and the abilities to fight. And I want to bring this up today as a opinion more than a biblical truth, although I will be discussing some biblical truths about the male and female differences and the biological divide that is happening today, and the biblical foundations where we find ourselves in this current debate about male-bodied athletes in women's sports, particularly in physical, demanding sports like boxing, that has brought light to the need to explore not only the biological differences between the sexes, but also the moral and spiritual dimensions of these differences. So therefore, friends, this presentation will look into the biological realities of male and female athletes, discuss the moral implications and these distinctions, and offer a deeper and hopefully a better understanding of biblical teachings about the nature and purposes of the sexes. I want to thank someone who's already touched on all these points, so I'm going to take some of his points. That's Martyn Iles on his own platform, that he talks about this, and being a lawyer, he's actually broke it down quite nicely. I'll put a link to his talk on this subject, and I'm just borrowing some of his research into this discussion. So we're looking at physical strength and athletic performance. The biological differences between men and women are significant and observable, especially as we see in sports. Men generally have greater muscle mass, denser bones, and high testosterone levels, all contributing to a superior physical strength. Martyn brought out the point that in boxing, this results in men punching with around 160% more force than women, a critical factor if you understand the sport of boxing. In power, that is, will determine a person's success, will it not? This we saw with the Italian lady when she was fighting, and she said she felt like she was hit really hard, unlike her female competitors were hitting. The physical advantages of male athletes are not limited, though, just to boxing. For example, another case was with Serena Williams and Venus Williams. They found themselves saying or stating that they could beat men in the same sport in the top 200. And there was a guy who was ranked 203rd, and he basically beat these two quite strong female tennis players at the time, at their peak, quite easily. And so we're talking about two strong women, right? Venus and Serena Williams. What's the chromosomal and hormonal foundations? Well, men and women differentiated by their chromosomes. Men typically have XY chromosomes, while women have XX. These genetic differences influence everything from physical development to hormonal levels, leading to significant distinctions we see in athletic performances. So we see like conditions like disorders of sex development, DSD for short, may blur some lines, but even in these cases, the advantages conferred by male puberty and testosterone levels persist, making competition between men and women in sports inherently unequal and in many cases unfair. And this was the case that was brought up in the different bodies that looked at these two athletes who were performing in boxing at the Olympics, just in the Paris Olympics there. Both were disbarred from actually fighting in the Federation of Boxing, but the IOC allowed them a free pass, even though the findings were given to them by the previous body, by another body, which only allows those who have the gender under test that they are actually women to compete in women's sports. But these two that won 2 gold in the Olympics, they didn't pass the test. The test came back that they were male, in fact, from the genetic point of view. So yes, it is unequally and unfair when men fight against women. Now I want to get to the Bible side of things and understanding the differences, or understanding the biblical point of view of the sexes. We see the creation of man and woman. According to the Bible, men and women were created with distinct but complementary roles and purposes. So that's important to note. Not one's better than the other, but complementary roles and purposes. Genesis 1:27 states, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them." So this really helps us to see there's a difference between men and women. And then if we read in chapter 2, it provides further insight when women is created from man, symbolizing not just physical differences, but also a relational dynamic where both sexes are meant to complement and support each other. This complementary reflects God's design for human relationships and society. So what we see then, we'll get back to the boxing in a moment, but we're just trying to establish the role from the biblical point of view of man and woman and how this all fits in. The Bible assigns specific roles to men and women, often linked to their physical, emotional attributes. In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 23, husbands are called to love their wives sacrificially as Christ loves the church, and wives are called to respect and submit to their husbands. Now, a lot of people have problems with this, especially feminists. This really is a protective role and a nurturing role, and a role that both are really expected to play. It's not just one submitting to one and not the other, or one respecting one and not the other, or one just loving one and the other person not loving the other, right? It's really both are supposed to be doing this and to help in the marriage. In 1 Peter 3:7, we see that the point is made where it says, men, urging men to show honor to the woman as the weaker vessel. Isn't that interesting? But what does this mean? This does not imply inferiority, but rather recognizes the need for men to use their strength to protect and cherish women rather than to dominate or try to harm them. But didn't we see an opposite in the boxing? If you agree in the gender, that if the gender results are saying that one is a male and fighting against a woman, we see something opposite is happening, right? Where a man is punching a woman in the face and trying to hurt that person. So this teaching, when we look at the Bible though, is in direct opposition to the idea of using a man using physical advantage against women in sports, and especially like boxing. Is there a distortion going on about the way we view each other? Is that the message that we're trying to, or the world's trying to pass on to us, saying what is distorted as not distorted? It's interesting when we look at what the Bible speaks against actions that distort or go against God's intended order for man and woman. If you go to Romans 1, chapter 1, verses 26-27, it discusses how humanity, in turning away from God's design, falls into behaviors that are against nature. In the context of sports, allowing men to compete against women violates the natural order established by God, where physical strength is meant to protect and support, not to overpower and dominate. The distortion of roles is not just a matter of social or athletic concern, but a spiritual one, as it reflects a deeper rebellion against the Creator's design for humanity. Upholding the integrity of male and female distinction, therefore, in sports, becomes not just a matter of fairness, but honoring God's creation. When we look at the protective role of men, we know we get a lot of messages about what is male masculinity today. We see that all over the place on the internet, through influencers, and of course there are all sorts of different opinions about this. But we're looking at the Bible. So the biological difference between men and women are intended to fulfill specific roles within God's design. Men's greatest strength is meant to be a source of protection for a woman, not a weapon against them. This protective role is deeply ingrained in the biblical understanding of masculinity. So therefore, in sports, the principle implies that men should not compete against women in ways that exploit these physical differences. Instead, athletic competition should respect the natural distinctions and honor the unique strengths of both sexes. Do you agree? What about the value of femininity? The Bible places immense value on femininity, portraying women as nurturers, caregivers, and partners in life. Proverbs 31:10-31 praises the virtuous woman, of course, not so much for her physical strength, but for her wisdom, kindness, and the fear of God. So therefore, these qualities are equally important in the world of sports, where women should be celebrated for their achievements within the context of their natural abilities and their natural strengths that is for them. Allowing, though, men to compete in women's sports undermines this value by disregarding the changes or the differences or distinctiveness of female athletes and the unique contributions they bring to the disciplines. Upholding truth, therefore, is a matter of integrity and importance in today's current society climate. The current debates over gender in sports are clouded by confusion, as one of the sports IOC's chair people, or one of the sports people there, one of those officers in charge, said it's confusing for them. What's the solution? Well, simple. Go back to the Bible. Go back to what the other bodies are doing. A gender assessment. That would be better. It's not that confusing, right? The Bible calls for truth and clarity, as seen in passages like Ephesians 4:15, which encourages speaking the truth in love. The truth includes acknowledging the biological and moral differences between men and women. As a society, we must uphold this truth by ensuring that sports policies reflect both scientific realities and biblical principles, protecting the integrity of women's sports and honoring God's design for the sexes. So friends, the differences between men and women, male and female athletes, are not merely physical, but are deeply rooted in biological, moral, and spiritual order established by God. As we go through these, debates, if you like, that we're seeing today, the integrity of these types of competitions is not just about fairness. It is about honoring the Creator's design for humanity. So I encourage you to engage in any discussions you like with your friends about this. I know I was a little bit put off last night when I was watching this sport. Immediately you could tell that the person, the Polish woman, was fighting a male. That's what I concluded immediately, just in the style, the stance, the way this person fought. I thought she was robbed. She, would have been better for her to fight another female, and then let's see if she could have won the gold. I think she was robbed because of not having this clear objective in mind when it comes to the differences in the sexes. So I say this in the spirit of love and truth, and I respect our Heavenly Father's divine order, and I think if we do that, it will protect women's rights and the integrity of the sports that they're in. It would encourage more women to go into these sports. They won't be then subjected to such actions as these two men boxers who were given permission to fight, even though they claim on their passports that they're women, to fight in women's boxing. I thought that's a disgrace, really, and it should never have been allowed to take place. So anyway, these are just my opinions today, friends. It's just an opinion post more than anything. Take care, have a great day, and we'll talk again on another subject about truth and God's grace. Take care.